So my name is Greg Galvin with Silver Peak Systems. I'm the channel account manager, so I support all of our resellers, but also our customers indirectly as well. And the purpose of this presentation is to kind of discuss what changes we're seeing in the market as far as how the WAN is evolving, and where we came from WAN op, and where we're seeing the market shift towards SD-WAN. So with that, just a quick history on Silver Peak. So Silver Peak was founded in 2004 to address WAN optimization. So if you're not familiar with WAN op is basically improving performance over distance. So as more and more companies became disparate in applications, were residing in multiple locations, that was the problem that we looked to address. In 2011, we moved towards virtualization, so we didn't require our customers to have a physical appliance at that point. And we can work in a much more diverse network. And then now where we're at in 2015 is with SD-WAN, or it's also referred to as hybrid WAN. We hear those terms interchanged, but basically giving customers the ability to create a WAN over cheap commodity broadband internet. Now, I talked to a few of you at our booth, but I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on what that is and how it looks like. So this is the most recent Gartner Magic Quadrant on WAN op. So Gartner hasn't broken out SD-WAN from WAN op yet. However, they did mention it in the write-up and mentioned specifically that customers should look at Silver Peak for WAN op replication and for SD-WAN. So you'll see that there's only 3 of us in the leaders quadrant, Cisco and Riverbed, but we're also furthest to the right as far as visionary. And really that stems from our SD-WAN solution. So going back in history just a little bit as far as how WANs were architected, based on the needs of the enterprise, a decade ago. Really, MPLS was the underlying infrastructure that everyone used, and this was a pretty typical architecture that you'd see. So you'd have your corporate headquarters or data center location, you'd have the branches connected by MPLS, but most of the applications resided in the brick and mortar data center, with very few in the cloud. Yahoo and Google for search engines, and some things with SAP and Oracle and others, but for the most part, all the applications resided on-prem. Now that we're seeing all of this traffic move to the cloud, the historical architecture, this hub and spoke, doesn't necessarily work as well. It creates latency, traffic issues, reliability issues, and performance issues. So really what we're doing is taking a look at that and seeing how companies are kind of evolving away from a large data center to moving more applications to the cloud. So from a cost perspective and what this looks like, so companies that had purchased MPLS in the past in order to build a secure, reliable network, it came at a pretty hefty price tag. So if any of you have MPLS networks or a hybrid underlying infrastructure, that MPLS is very expensive. So what SD-WAN does is gives our customers the ability to either move away from MPLS altogether or downgrade their MPLS circuits. So one thing that customers often overlook is even if you are locked into a long-term MPLS contract, oftentimes you can downgrade the amount of the pipe in order to augment that with broadband, because cheap commodity broadband, you can get it from a cable provider. We can even run on a 4G backup, because oftentimes a backup circuit is often left idle. So it's just sitting there not being used and you're paying for it. So really what we're seeing is our customers are starting down this path with a hybrid solution. So not ready to get rid of MPLS altogether, but they want a way to reduce costs and improve performance utilizing 2 different pipes. Sure. Correct. Yeah. No, that's true, and that's so. This was an actual customer of ours in San Francisco, and you're right. So something to point out: typically with cable or even DSL, your download speeds are typically 5 to 10x higher than your upload speeds, and with full duplex traffic, like VoIP, like video, that is definitely something to keep in mind. But even with that, so say for example, like at my house, I have, I think, 20 megs down and around 8 up. So it's still significantly, more upload than I need, for my typical uses. But no, that's a good point. That's worth pointing out. So, nevertheless, you're using 2 different pipes, and that kind of plays into path conditioning, sending packets down both paths. So that also. No, that's absolutely right, and that's why we're not trying to change the service provider model. And I actually worked at a service provider for many years, and knowing full well that the kids get home from school and then they fire up their PlayStations or iPads, and then your internet, it's a shared circuit. So you're absolutely right. This is to augment, not replace necessarily. Now we are seeing customers do this, and again, it depends on your traffic. So if you depending on your branch location, you may have performance issues if everyone's using the internet in your neighborhood, depending on shared services like DSL, like cable. But nevertheless, with that kind of cost savings, and you still have the redundancy of 2 pipes, it could still be worth it. But yeah, that's an excellent point, and that's definitely worth noting. And really, and that dovetails into voice and video traffic. That so really, we don't care what the underlying network is, and we create what we call an overlay network with Unity orchestrators. So that's our SD-WAN solution. And what it does is it gives customers the ability to securely connect all their branch locations with their existing underlying infrastructure. So what that looks like, and this is one screen, one single pane of glass. So we can basically, create the business intent policies that you'd like. So if you want, and I've got another slide that is a better visual representation, but this gives you the ability to create your architecture within Unity Orchestrator for one branch location or multiple branch locations. And oh, by the way, we grew up in WAN optimization. Now it's really just a separate license and a click of a button within Unity Orchestrator. So this next slide actually gives a better representation of what that looks like. So say depending on the type of traffic, you may want to architect it and send it down different paths or multiple paths. So if it's guest Wi-Fi traffic, maybe you have a hub and spoke topology. If it's different enterprise applications that reside in different data centers within your organization, maybe it's multiple hub and spoke, and they're using the MPLS plus the internet. Or if it's voice, for example, you want the shortest, quickest path, so you're going to create a full mesh topology. So you can create business intent policies based on the type of traffic that you're passing. So here are some of the key advantages to SD-WAN in our Edge Connect solution. So WAN hardening is fully encrypted, so it's secure. And that's one of the first questions we get is, okay, if I'm going to put my traffic over the public internet, I want to make sure it's secure. So very secure. We've got credit unions, banks, other financial services organizations that are using our solution. The path control and path conditioning, again, that accounts for lost packets, drop packets. If one link is performing better than the other link, again, we can provide that higher level of service and performance using path conditioning. And then cloud intelligence. So, if it's an application that resides in the cloud, does that traffic necessarily need to be home run back through the data center or a corporate headquarters location? Probably no. Or even if it's like Facebook or guest Wi-Fi traffic where you just want it going out the internet, we can route traffic appropriately based on those criteria as well. So again, this is, so Unity Boost is what we call our legacy WAN op solution. But again, since it's all within the same platform, there's no need to buy a separate appliance or do anything else with it. It's really just a separate software license within Unity Orchestrator. And the cool thing about it too is if you need WAN op at certain locations, you can carve it up however way you'd like. So it comes in 100 meg increments. So if you need 20 megs of WAN op at your headquarters location and then 5 at each branch location, you can carve it up any way you'd like. And you can do it however many times you like. You're in control. So what this looks like from a deployment perspective, so we can deploy our solution either on one of our appliances and their size like t-shirts, so extra small like that is for a small branch location, small, medium, large, etc. Typically that can handle 200 megs, so just about any branch location for the most part. Or it can terminate to a VM as well. So just depends on what works best for you. We're not in the hardware business, but we do provide that in case customers are looking for that. Unity Orchestrator, as we saw earlier, that gives you all the dashboards, the reporting, the ability to configure everything the way you'd like. And then, as I'd mentioned earlier, Unity Boost, which is the WAN op solution. So here are just a handful of customers that we have. So definitely some big names, as you notice. Apple, I like to mention and point out. So Apple uses us throughout their entire global network. So if there's traffic passing between any of their retail stores, corporate locations, it's going through a Silver Peak. Obviously, different industries and verticals, healthcare, financial services, manufacturing, even government. So, again, with PCI compliance being a big thing, and all the everything that is entailed with security, it's definitely worth noting, some of our government agencies that use Silver Peak as well. So, really, that's kind of it in a nutshell. Any other questions about Silver Peak, what we do, how we do it?
Most of those customers had MPLS?
Yes. Yep. And some of them still do. Like I mentioned, some, again, depending on if they're still under contract, if depending on the location, if it's a small branch location, maybe they're a little more comfortable on a broadband circuit or multiple broadband circuits. But yeah, it's a varying mix of MPLS customers as well.
This is device doing something like the data duplication, so if the traffic had already been sent to the remote site once, and the second user sending the same or similar data, it doesn't have to send again.
Yeah, so there is a little dedupe built into the WAN op piece of it too, so you're not sending that traffic multiple times, so it does sniff that out. So there is a dedupe component in that as well.
And unlimited connections per site due to 2-fiber, a couple of T1s.
Yeah, so yeah, we're not necessarily a replacement for a branch router either. So our appliance can fit in line with whatever you have. Typically, it's a branch firewall, a branch router of some sort, and yeah, as long as there's an Ethernet handoff, we can take that. Now, if you had 20 T1s, for example, I don't know why you'd want that many, but if that were the case, yeah, we wouldn't be able to terminate 20 T1s to maybe get a DS3, and but yeah, as long as it's Ethernet handoff. One thing, and I don't know if I mentioned it, it's worth pointing out that we also have customers where, say it's a pretty remote location and you only have one service provider that provides a physical handoff. Some of those customers also do 4G LTE as backhaul as well, because again, on its own, it's not a very reliable, robust circuit, but when you're sending traffic down both paths and doing the path conditioning, it gives customers the ability to take two kind of lousy circuits and make one pretty resilient circuit. So.
I know you touched on QoS a little bit, but it's really not an issue if you go down to the 2 DSL type or 2
broadcast type connections?
Right. Yeah. So again, you can set certain brownout thresholds within the solution as well. So, or within Unity Orchestrator. One example I like to give of a customer in Denver, large financial services company, they had a MPLS outage that lasted 9 hours, and they never knew about it. They didn't know about it until after the fact, when their service provider said, "Oh, by the way, sorry about the major outage we had," and they didn't know because it failed over, sub-second failover to their broadband connection, and they were up and running the whole time. So it is pretty robust.
What's the list price for the smallest
For the actual box, I believe that is I want to say 2K. I'll have to double check on the appliances. But yeah, I mean, we're not in the hardware business. We'll happily provide a box to our customers, but
So Unity, a smaller box, 2K, including the software, or we have?
no. So the list price for the subscription is $2,400 per site per year, and times however many sites you have. So, but that's all in. Again, that's the software that includes support, software upgrades, everything. So it's a subscription-based model. Yeah.
Per site subscription.
Correct. Yep.
And you start with 2.
Yeah. Really, you need at least 2 in order for the secret sauce to work. But yeah, that's typically the minute. And we have customers from 5 sites on up to several hundred sites. Especially retail, they love us because they don't, need expensive MPLS circuits to some of these, whether it's a store or a restaurant or something along those lines. It's like, hey, we just need, cheap, reliable, high-performing connection, and how can we do that? And how can we do that in a cost-effective manner? So.
You have like an intelligent dashboard that gives me analytics on my network.
Yeah, it does. And the visual didn't show it very well, but yeah, there is reporting. You can, drill down and.
Network is down somewhere.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
Does it function, does it work well with jitter? That, if you have jitter on one and fail over, does it measure the latency, or is that part of the?
Yeah, absolutely. So, there's one, I've seen it in a demo, but it's a really good visual. So if you took 2 circuits, and say they're broadband circuits or 4G, what have you, and you're seeing it spike with brownouts or even blackouts where it's going down completely. But then you've got the top bar, which is the 2 circuits on the silver peak, and it's solid green almost all the time, because unless both those circuits went down at the same time, hard down, you're going to be up and running, in one form or fashion. And again, that's where the dynamic path conditioning takes place, and what that really, helps the performance of these otherwise, pretty mediocre circuits. So.
So we've seen people take like 4G backup on other sites then as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and sometimes, depending on the use case or the customer, that's all they have if it's really remote. So I cover the upper Midwest and the Rockies, and we've got customers and some prospects we're talking to that have some pretty rural remote sites, and that's if you've got a microwave direct shot back or 4G, we can work with just about anything. But again, where it's very beneficial is when you have 2 or more circuits, because there's only so much we could do with path conditioning and everything else on one circuit, especially if it's a poor performing circuit that's subject to latency or packet loss. But if there's 2 or more, that's really where the value comes in.
Can you use it for signal, just load balancing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So.
Any locations, realistically, it could be $200 a month.
Yeah, because the load balancing aspect of it is huge, because again, there's so many people right now that are paying for a circuit that's sitting idle just as a DR scenario, but really to load balance between those circuits, you're really getting the performance of both. If you've got a 5 meg MPLS, 20 or 50 meg, broadband connection, again, download, not upload necessarily, but that's where the performance increase really happens. It's kind of a situation of 1 and 1 equals 3.